Welcome to From Doubt to Drive, Entrepreneurs Only. Join us on an inspired journey through the ups and downs of successful entrepreneurs. Our hosts, Mario C. Bauer and Florian Schneider, will explore how conquering doubt is essential for entrepreneurs to truly unleash drive. By being a part of our community, you too can learn how to propel from doubt to drive. So tune in, buckle up, and enjoy.
So welcome and welcome back. Florian, today is burger day. So are you a burger guy?
Oh, I'm totally a burger guy. I actually made my own burger over the weekend with my son. He also loves burgers, but only with ketchup. Yeah, and what ketchup does he use? I mean, Curtis Brothers, but anyway.
That's another topic. So no. I think then you can learn a lot today, Florian, how you actually should do your burger. We have a very special guest today, a dear friend and one of the leader in our business, John Eckbert. And before we welcome you personally, I want to take a little bit time to talk about the background of Five Guys. He will tell more, but I give a little bit facts before. So I think the unusual thing about Five Guys, it's a family business since 1986. And in Europe, it started, and I remember that on 4th of July, 2013. And 11 years ago, John started that journey. So within the 11 years, incredible success, 260 restaurants in 4 countries, 160 in UK, 35 in Germany, 30 in Spain, 30 in France. So, and he will add another 43 in that year, 600 million pound sales, 8,700 employees. So that's numbers which are really astonishing. So welcome, John. We are really happy to have you here.
Thanks, Mario. Thanks, Florian. Great to be with you guys.
So we got you today after a long flight, but you're used to that as an American going back and forward from US to UK. And that brings me to my first topic, because as we know each other for quite some time, we thought we can skip the warm-up and we go directly into the flesh, so to say. I want to pick a topic which is a core topic of mine in general. There's a German word, John, it's called Schwellenangst. And I'm not sure how strong your German is, but it's basically the fear of threshold and borders. It's basically the fear when we stand before an important decision in life and we doubt if we should do that and jump. And I always admired you because you're kind of really crazy. You're an American, you were based in Florida, you were a banker, and then somebody gives you the chance and opportunity and says, can you please come to UK and open some burger joints? And there must be the moment where you think should I actually do that? And I want to go into this moment now, John, into that Schwellenangst. So maybe you describe the situation, why you got that offered, how you got that offered, and especially how you felt back then.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, I mean, first of all, just stepping back, I love the focus that you've chosen to focus our entrepreneurial brains around this concept of doubt, because I think it's such an important element. I mean, because it implies this uncertainty, right? And in the midst of uncertainty, there's room for doubt, and there's room for both the flip side of that same coin, which is faith or conviction. Mm-hmm. And I view them as kind of opposite sides of the very same coin. And I mean, if something were known, well, then there wouldn't be any risk, but there also wouldn't be much juice in that opportunity either. But when you have doubt, that means there's great uncertainty, and that there, if you have great conviction, maybe you can bridge that big doubt that you have. And now to go back to your first question, it was a really interesting discussion because I had built this boutique private mergers and investment bank, and I had sold my shares and was trying to decide what next to do. And I said, I made myself a checklist. I said, look, if these 3 things happen, I'll move to London. Because I'd been here as a student and fallen in love and met Charles Dunstan a long time ago. I had this very romantic vision of living in London with a slightly better than a student's budget. And I said, look, if I can sell my house in Florida, if I can find a job or some opportunity, something to build that I really liked, and 3, if I got my kids into some schools that they could go to, then I would take the jump and move. Well, I didn't have a job and I didn't sell my house, but my kids got into school and I was like, that's okay. I'm still coming.
So one out of three. But how this different industry? Because it's something to move across the pond for the same industry or for the same company. You moved for a completely different industry in a different country where you didn't have any background. So what was like how you felt back then, and how was this coming together?
So I moved over here without a plan. No plan, no opportunity, nothing. So I landed in the UK on the 1st of January, and my good friend Charles Dunstan, who I had met in when I was a student and then stayed in touch with, said I could stay in his house for 10 days till he got back from his holiday. So I had 10 days to land my family in a house. And I thought about doing a lot of different things. I thought about staying in banking, but Charles and I started talking about, let's build another big scalable consumer-facing business. Neither of us had any experience in food and beverage. And we thought, but what we loved about it was that it seemed less susceptible to competition from Amazon in the kind of online world. This was, back in 2011, 2010. So we thought, well, look, between us, we're entrepreneurs. And Charles has this fantastic reputation in the UK for knowing the British, the UK consumer, and the European consumer. So we thought, let's bring a kind of world-beating American concept that's not in Europe and bring it over. And they'll bring all the kind of food and beverage knowledge, and Charles and I'll bring the local execution. And that led to, we talked to every great American concept that wasn't here at the time, and came close to doing a bunch of different deals. But one day we were sitting in Charles' office, and the cover of Bloomberg magazine had Jerry Morrell eating a hamburger, saying the fastest growing food and beverage company in the US. We said, let's do that, which was, sounded like a great idea. Yeah. But back to the issue of struggles in business, and where do businesses fall apart and fail? I've been thinking about that whole orientation, and so many ideas fail on the whiteboard. They're fantastic ideas. You have this inspiration. Let's bring Five Guys to the UK, but then actually doing it, and not just thinking about it, but actually. I literally went online, pulled up the Five Guys website, went on there. I'd like to run the UK Five Guys UK, and followed up with a phone call. Found the family member, said,
So you just followed through. So from the impulse, so the moment from that cover of the magazine till like you followed through, that's like days or minutes or hours. Like
it was probably a month later. I was in Washington D.C. meeting with the family. From when Charles and I were sitting in the office to being, with the first meeting with the family. And as it turned out, it was just perfect timing. The family was thinking about taking Five Guys abroad for the first time. They had sold out all the franchises in the US. Obviously, the UK was a place to go. And it just the timing was perfect. And then you had these two entrepreneurial families, Charles and I, and the Morrell family, that really had this shared vision of building businesses together. And we have a very unorthodox relationship where it's just a 50-50 joint venture. There's no royalties, and it's just build a business together. And it wouldn't be the business today if we had signed a typical franchise. It was very out of the box.
It was entrepreneurial from both sides. But that fast track, John, didn't at one stage on either side of your partnership, was there still, I need to come back for that, because it's hard to me to believe that nobody doubted back then. Still, your business partner and friend had a track record, but he built phone shops and not, so nobody of you had restaurants experience. Was that, you never thought like, am I able to do that? You never kind of had that feeling? Or you said, okay, let's go for that?
Well, the idea was, we would bring this very local execution experience, and they would bring the food and beverage side. Now, the one thing that we that was the genius of it is part of the Morel genius is just how simple the offer is. I mean, it's just
simple.
burgers and fries, and it doesn't change. There's not like a roving menu. It's very fixed. They've done one new product launch, and since they launched the company in 1986, and that was to add a milkshake. So this simplicity, I think, really helped. And I didn't expect to be chief exec from the outset. Even then, I structured the deal.
You thought you're the deal maker.
Hired the team. Thought I was going to be out. Within 6 months of opening things up. And then we found this amazing location at Covent Garden. And what we had seen was missing was that we thought the burger and fries were like mind-bendingly fantastic. I mean, they were just world-beating products. And the Morels knew burgers and fries. But we thought the product didn't have the right real estate positioning, and we thought it deserved AAA prime positioning in Europe. So we went for this Covent Garden location, which is very quintessentially English and British, and it was just a very proud location. And there was no TV advertising, so we didn't really know what was going to happen. And then the first day came. I can remember
4th of July.
4th of July, and Charles and I were nervous. I mean, we were very nervous. Talk about, apprehension. We had spent $2.25 million premium on kicking the bar out, another $2.5 million to renovate the building and build it out, and then hiring staff and hiring a lot of staff. The Morels flew over, and we were like, "What if nobody comes?" And
but then there was a line.
Yeah, we said it to Jerry Morel the day before. We were standing in the restaurant, like, what if nobody comes?
What if nobody comes?
And the first customer showed up at 4 a.m. and there were queues around the block. It broke the biggest sales hour, day, week, month, year of any Five Guys. And that's when they said, okay, John, look, this is going to be, we have the tiger by the tail. This is going to be an amazing opportunity. We really think that you should step in and run the thing. So it wasn't till then that I really left banking behind and said that was
the moment.
This is a much better fit for me from a personality and the way I like to work. It's very different and much more aligned with how I think and want to be.
I do remember pictures of the lines when you opened Covent Garden, and from there it was actually an amazing accelerated journey how fast you opened in the UK in the beginning. I think it was 30-40 in the first 2 years or something like that. Even though it sounds like you didn't really had this Schwellenangst Mario referred to, but there must have been difficult moments. Do you recall a very difficult moment where you say, oh my God, Covent Garden opening was great, but maybe it wasn't right at all.
I mean, it happened almost immediately because we had signed leases on 2 more sites before we even opened Covent Garden. So we had this thesis we were going to open up 5 sites and then pause and see what happened. So we had committed these sites, and the second store was in Reading. And after we had seen what had happened at Covent Garden, we were like, well, this is going to happen everywhere. It's just going to be, unbelievably strong everywhere. And Reading opened up. I think we underwrote Reading for like $50,000 a week. And I think Reading opened up at like $32,000 a week. And here we had Covent Garden that was churning out, 150 grand weeks. And we're like, what happened? We thought every place was going to be like that. And of course, Reading is one of our top performers now. It churns out fantastic cash flows. It just took a while for the community to recognize that Five Guys was there, and it literally took about a year for that store to settle in and is a top performing one. But that there is always a shock when something doesn't do what you thought it was going to do. we've had the same thing across Europe. I think one of the things that struck me was whenever you do an interview opening a new country, your first store, one of the things you say is, how many stores could there be in this country? And it just is such a baiting question, especially for Americans, who it's so hard. A humble American seems like an oxymoron at sometimes. So, being, holding back and trying to say, well, we're gonna, we're just gonna have to see how the brand lands here, because it's going to be different, and it absolutely is different. And I can remember we opened up in one of Spain's top malls, had huge footfall and a great big location, just like we had done in Westfield here in London, and the sales just didn't show. And it's just the consumer's different in Spain and thinks differently in Spain. Spain's now a fantastic market. I mean, we know exactly what to underwrite stores for in Spain. It's performing brilliantly. Daniel Aguirre, who used to run McDonald's, runs the business for you. He's done a phenomenal job. But it was a huge shot. Like, wait a minute, Five Guys doesn't work in Spain the way it did in the UK at all. We've got to figure out. We got to think local here and understand what Five Guys Spain is going to look and act like. And that I will say that's one of the things that we've been committed to is behaving in a very local way. We want the French and the Germans and the Spanish, any country, to feel like Five Guys is really their best.
It's like a local neighborhood restaurant. But when you face, like, when you have this surprise or negative moments where you think like, okay, it's not going as planned, what's your natural reaction in these moments? Do you try to group with your employees? Do you try to group with your partners? Do you meditate or run, or what do you do to kind of find, like, to readjust? Because leaders react differently, entrepreneurs react differently. What's your modus operandi when you face that struggle? Where do you go? How do you go?
Well, I tell you, it's really interesting. In banking, I view as very much lends itself more to very much of a prima donna mentality. A very much of a kind of a kind of very talented, gifted footballer who thinks that they're the greatest gift to their industry. And
nice quote.
In food and beverage strikes me as very different. Now look, I mean, I completely appreciate that there's like the celebrity chef stuff where it is actually someone who has brilliance and inspiring, and and kind of everything flows from one human being. But my experience in food and beverage has been, it is such a team-oriented activity. And if one person thinks that they can make everything happen across hundreds of restaurants, across multiple markets, you're kidding yourself. I mean, food and beverage is fundamentally about passion, right? It's about, when you succeed, your customers can taste the passion that you've built into it. And that only comes if the people who are cooking the burgers and fries feel the kind of the intensity of the brand and the purpose of the brand, and are inspired by the brand in that way. So, to me, where I turn is to my team. And we haven't had the success that we've had because of me. It's been because we have an unbelievable group of talented people. I'll tell you, my biggest fear was, and probably still remains, that somehow as we grow, that we'll dilute the kind of passion of Five Guys belief and conviction. And when you walk into a Five Guys, you should feel the pulse of the crew just there to, immediately hit you when you walk in the store. You should be able to feel that. And you can always tell the temperature of a food and beverage crew when you walk in. So to me, that was my biggest fear, was that we'd lose that. But what's happened was, as we've recruited, we've gone for the most talented people we could find, and the ones who thought like we did and believed like we did, that we had this unbelievable opportunity to grow this business and scale this business. And we've actually just gotten stronger over
But
the
John,
years.
how you keep that? Because it's when we have always this experience, it's always exciting, the first one and second one and fifth one, but now you have 260 restaurants and you add another 43, so it will be above 300. How do you keep that pulse? Because in our industry, maintaining, finding stuff, I mean, it's a hard work. I mean, it looks like fun, but it's a hard work. It's warm, you're sweating, it's a lot of manual work, it's heavy equipment. How you keep that pulse, how you keep that bumping? Because you're right, if you lose that, you're just another burger joint. Yeah, you need that bumping. It's part of the brand. How you keep that?
Well, we do a survey every year. One thing that comes back, and we built the business on values, and obviously perfect burgers and fries, but on shared values. And one of the values is family. We're a family-owned business. The Morels are very involved in burgers and fries and in the feel of the restaurant. When we interview our crews every year, they come back and they say we feel that family identity. And I will say that actually the growth and ambition of the brand has attracted a certain type of person. When we first started hiring, we just begged everyone to join the business. No one knew who Five Guys was. We said, please come join. And we had this huge churn. People thought it was, hey, this is great. Five Guys is kind of new and exciting, and I'll join. And then it was like really hard work, and lots of people left. And we finally figured that we were recruiting wrong. And we turned the entire recruiting model on its head. And we said, actually, Five Guys is probably the hardest job in food and beverage, and it probably isn't for you. And then we just went quiet and waited for the people who raised their hand and said, well, that sounds kind of good to me. And we ended up attracting these ambitious,
the right people,
young leaders in the business who wanted to grow, who wanted to have more responsibility, and progress saw Five Guys not just as like some stop in their kind of journey, but a real place where they could grow their career. And if you have ambition and you're in food and beverage, Five Guys has got to be on your radar screen, because if you're an assistant manager and you want to be a manager, or you're a manager and you want to go multi-unit. I mean, Five Guys, we're opening up 43 stores in that
room to grow.
So that's we're going to create how many district managers is that? So if you have ambition, you're going to think of Five Guys, which has really helped us from a cultural perspective.
Strong statement. John, one second, Florian, because I had one thought. We talked about family a lot. I mean, what about the biggest family crisis we had in our industry, COVID? I mean, that hit us as a family, that hit your family. How, like these first couple of days into COVID, where you think, okay, that's more than just a stupid virus that really kind of infects that. You back then, how many restaurants you had? How did you react? How did you regroup? Let's travel back to that family crisis moment we all had, but you had it bigger because you had 5 countries, couple, like probably over 200 restaurants already. Can you go back to that crisis moment of your family as you described, how you navigated through? How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody says that, I mean, what were some of the hardest things you did? It doesn't say COVID. They forgot. I mean, it was hugely anxiety produced. I mean, this was an existential threat like none of us had ever experienced. And I will say family played so powerfully in the pandemic for us. We started closing stores. We weren't sure what was happening, but we kept 13 stores open, and we were sending lots of food to first responders. We didn't know if we were going to have any customers. Thankfully, we had launched delivery. So we knew that delivery was a channel that might work for us.
Might work, yeah.
And so we never shut down fully. So our supply chain kept going, which I think was a critical factor. And we got down to 13 stores, and they were actually pretty busy. And we started looking, and we're like, wait a minute. Everybody's coming to Five Guys because we're the only ones open. I mean, remember, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC all had shut even their drive-thrus at this point. So we were one of the few brands that stayed open. So we said, okay, we're going to open up 10 stores a week until we're fully back open and operating. So we were the first store open in most of the trading pitches. I remember we got a bill for an entire mall's service charge because we were the only store open in the entire mall.
my
But it was
That's a nice bill.
but it was
That's a nice bill.
fantastic
Yes,
for the brand
100%,
because
sure.
customers discovered us because we were the only ones open. But I think it was that trust that we had developed with our crews, that they knew that if we were going to try and work, try and come to work and serve the customers, that we wouldn't do that without having really thought of them and their welfare. And we pushed, we did push it. We had invested $250,000 in every extraction for every restaurant. So we were confident that we had kind of fantastic circulation inside the restaurants to keep everybody safe. And it really worked. And the crew were all right. And we were able to take care of the drivers and the takeout customers in a really respectful, thoughtful way, and support kind of all the first responders who were very much in the forefronts of all of our mind. But within 5 or 6, 7 weeks, we were fully back open and trading. And it was it's been the making of the brand in many ways by being open when many were closed.
John, you said in the beginning that risk and opportunities are basically two sides of the same coin. So you shared some doubts and struggles with us. Is there anything where you would say that made a positive change for me personally? A doubt, a struggle when I hit the wall, and I overcame that problem that actually changed my way of thinking, leading, working.
Yeah, I guess I would go back to the fundamental shift from banking to food and beverage.
Yeah, for example.
And for me, it's been a transformation. The kind of very ego-driven world of banking, and versus this incredible team-oriented approach to food and beverage has been, to me, just a complete sea change and a real transformation of what I want to get out of work. When I think about work now, it's how can we create career opportunities for all the talent that's in this business now, and where can it go, and how far can we push this talent? And I think this is just the first chapter of Five Guys for us. I think there's a whole next chapter to come of what can we do as the JV? What have we learned? From the JV, we launched delivery. We opened up the first drive-throughs, Five Guys in the world. There's the Morels have trusted us to push the brand in ways that maybe hasn't been done before. We're very appreciative of that trust and respect from them. But for me personally, I feel completely different about what kind of satisfaction I get from getting up in the morning and being a part of these 8,750 people who put on a red T-shirt and make burgers and fries together. It feels like a completely different personal experience and rewarding in ways that no big bonus check could do from for a banker. There's a different human level of connection. My personal conviction is that our purpose as human beings is connection. That's why we exist. We exist to connect. And food and beverage is such a powerful facilitator for connection, right? With each other and with our customers. It's an amazingly powerful way to connect. So for me, there's a huge amount of compensation to me that comes from being able to connect with the crews, be in the stores, know that they, that they're doing everything they can to take care of the customer, And just like we're doing everything we can to support them from the back office. So to me, it's a completely different
It seems like,
orientation.
John, there's no way that your former industry will ever get you
But-
back. So there is no more John in banking, I guess.
But there's an interesting follow-up question, and I need to ask, because you described that transformation and travel back in time as you have been a manager in a bank, and one of your staff reached out to you in regards of help and support, what to do in a situation of trouble compared to now with your team. How did you do that back then, and how do you do that now?
No, Florian, it's such a great question. And I mean, and to me, this is the currency that I get paid in many times. You know, as a manager, you have employees who tell you things, very personal things about their life because they need to, because it affects their work. You know, they have a parent who's sick. They have a child who's they're having issues with, or they're going through a tough time with their partner. All these are incredibly personal, vulnerable things that wouldn't normally be part of a business conversation, but we as managers are privileged to get that. And this is happening to 23-year-old managers who are running a store, who are, it's not just me that this happens to, it's across our whole industry. This kind of vulnerability happens. And those conversations, I can assure you, having spent the vast majority of my career there, never happen in banking. I mean, being vulnerable is
no-go.
is like you're next to death. So first of all, that whole process. I mean, and you don't work with many people. I mean, look, there's some amazing bankers who really understand groups and actually do a really good job of working with their team. So I don't mean to characterize a whole industry in that way. But for me, it's been such a privilege to have the opportunity to connect with my team and actually lots of people in the business who, for whatever reason or another, have a reason to share these things with me, and then I get to connect with them as human beings, not just as a boss, not just as a colleague, and those create conversations that are incredibly powerful. And if we can help each other in our crisis moments and our moments of greatest need, that creates bonds that transcend anything that you could hope for from an economic perspective.
That's the magic of that industry. Right? That's the magic of that industry. Absolutely. John, we traveled now back to the COVID crisis, and at the beginning, I want to go now to the here and now, and what is like keeping you up at night now in terms of overall situation, in terms of business? What is like the moments where you say, okay, this is like really needs my attention, that keeps me up at night now? What is it now?
Gosh, yeah, well, I think we've just come through the second leg of a challenge to food and beverage with this kind of shock inflation that's kind of blown all of our cost of goods out of the kind of normal trends that we've had. I think the thing that comes back I would say two themes. One, it's always human. If we as a brand can attract the top human talent, everything will take care of itself. Everything else will take care of itself. If we focus on burgers and fries and our crews hiring great people who care about each other and the product that we're making together, so much of the rest of the picture, falls into place. And I'm so grateful that I have shareholders who have that view. The Morels and Charles both. Nobody has a kind of a time frame or expectation or a fund to monetize or anything like that. Is build a great business, which I think has been such a key to our growth and success. But I think that in continuing to really listen well. I mean, if especially when you're opening up in different countries and in different cultures, there are going to be differences. And even though we're not going to remake our menu for a new place that we move to, but we can integrate to the culture and the community of that country well. And that means paying attention to the type of people that work well at a Five Guys and really connecting with the customer in a way that they can appreciate the value proposition. Five Guys is an affordable luxury. It's a premium product. It's not a cheap product, but it really does have great value for money. And the kind of we have actually the cheapest fry per ounce in the UK, which is shocking. I mean, when you compare it both to casual dining, fine dining, QSR, it doesn't matter. The Five Guys are the cheapest fry per ounce of anybody. Beats McDonald's. So there is a fantastic proposition out there for both for customers and for crew if we get it right. But to me, it's about the people in the end. And whenever a food and beverage business thinks that it's something other than people, you suspect a massive fall off. To me, it's always about the and this is the other thing. Bankers can sometimes, and I did too. I was guilty of it. Take credit for work that we didn't do, we say, hey, look, all the great consumer banking business, that was all me, and it inevitably wasn't all any one individual. But in food and beverage, if I can reflect the glory of the success of Five Guys right to the grill and the fry, and make those human beings who are working the grills, working the fryers, feel the glory of the success of the business, then we have something.
Reflect the glory to the grill. That's a nice summary on how to lead in our business. That's a nice summary.
Absolutely. If you because we are coming to an end, if you as a leader and an entrepreneur have one advice for people in doubt, in struggle right now, what would that be to sum it up?
First of all, I've told my kids, I will not give advice, and occasionally I can't resist myself, and I break the rule, and I always resist.
There you go.
I always
break the rule.
But the reason's a good one though, because what are the chances that my personal experience are going to so overlap with your personal experience that I could tell you what's the right thing to do in your situation? I think it's highly unlikely that would be the case. But what I can say is, to me, in food and beverage and in private equity, it's both true in both cases, that it's just like horses. You can smell fear, and that fear comes mostly from being inauthentic. So when you feel under pressure, become your most true, unvarnished self, because I guarantee you, everybody who's inside the business, who's watching you, all the customers who are watching you, can sense whether you're pretending or not. There's nowhere really to hide in food and beverage. And so, being your most authentic self when you're most under pressure is, I think, probably the cleanest thing that you can do, and the closest thing that I would get to advice, but I would hope it's.
But
not,
that's a strong one, and it definitely resonates to Florian, who is a big horse expert.
Yeah,
can
that's true.
Can you smell the fear, Florian?
I can.
Is John right?
I can at least smell a horse.
You can at least smell us. John, thank you so much for taking the time. We know that you had a long flight today, and you spent almost an hour with us. We truly appreciated a lot of great learnings there, different perspective, an amazing story, and we wish you all the best with the 43 openings. And hopefully you beat the number of restaurants in Europe. You beat soon your American mothership, so to say. Good luck with all of that. Thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.
Well, Florian, thank you, Mario. Thank you so much. It's been a great time with you guys.
Oh, what a nice guy. I really love John. It's one of a true leader, a true friend, and so much positive energy. I think it was a really good one. It's great to have somebody disrupting us a little bit, coming from another industry. So let's compare the notes. What do you have? What are our top learnings? The people want to hear the top learning.
I take the one with the horse. So
you take the one with the horse. Take it, Florian.
You can smell fear. become your most authentic self. It's a great
Let's
learning,
stick
no?
with that. You
Yeah.
as a horse training expert, is that true? Can you
It is
smell
true.
fear?
It is
Yes.
true. I mean, that's what you always say about horses. If a rider is anxious, they feel it, and
Mhm.
it's absolutely true, because there's unconscious behavior which actually limits your ability to do something, to think straight, to make conscious decisions, to act reasonable. If you are in fear, in flight mode, so to speak,
Mhm.
you are, yeah, you are not your
I think
authentic
it
self.
was a very strong advice. He said, I don't give advice, and then he hit us. You can smell the fear.
Yeah.
I have another one, a great quote. Give glory to the grill, or give all the glory to the grill. He compared, and he said, like, the difference between the banking and our industry is we need the team. We need the close
Yes.
connection to the team. And it's all about passion and team. Give the
Yeah.
glory to the grill. What else we have, Florian?
It's connected to that, because he also said it's it's always being human. Everything else is taking care of itself.
It's always human. Yeah. And he mentioned that in the crisis which we all faced in COVID, to say it's all about the humans. Stay close together. Everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
That's true. I have the purpose of human being is connection. So he stated, I mean, we now have like almost all the learnings are about the human connection, and what makes our industry so great is basically teamwork. The purpose of humans is being connected, really strong.
Yeah.
Do we have a fifth one, a last one for him?
I would say actually the one he started with, doubt and faith are the flip side of the same coin.
Yes, so true. From doubt to drive, I think you can only purely drive if you were in doubt before. We need the doubt. We need the doubt to create the faith, and we need the faith to create the doubt, probably. I think it was a really good one, good one.
He's such a good example for this transformation process that he also described, from being a banker. And when you ask him about Schwellenangst, and he basically, I mean, it didn't feel like Schwellenangst, but it must have been such a huge step from going out of such an established industry into a new country, into a new business, and starting there. That's incredible.
But probably nobody smelled his fear. Nobody smelled his fear.
He's such a positive mind.
That was fun. Talk to you next week, Florian. Let's see who we get next. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we did. But sharing is not just caring. It is also empowering. So recommend this podcast to fellow entrepreneurs who might need a dose of inspiration. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss out on future episodes. Thank you for being part of the community from Doubt to Drive Entrepreneurs Only. Mario and Florian are already gearing up for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, stay driven, and we'll be back next week.